The hallways were empty, filled only with the faint echo of my own footsteps when I first walked back into the classroom. The chaos of the day was gone, the voices of children, the scraping of chairs, the ringing of the final bell. All that was left was silence, the kind of silence that almost felt forbidden inside a school. The desk stood perfectly aligned, the smell of chalk clung stubbornly to the air, and outside, the sky had already deepened into a dusky blue. I sat alone at my desk, papers scattered in front of me, a red pen resting in my hand. My head ached from the long day, but I forced myself to focus. If I could just finish the lesson plans for the week, maybe I could finally breathe tomorrow. The ticking of the old clock on the wall seemed louder in the emptiness, marking every second that kept me away from home. My phone lit up suddenly, buzzing softly against the wood of the desk. I didn't even have to check the name, I knew it would be him. My husband. When will you be home? I miss you, Red Heart. I stared at the message longer than I should have. For a moment, I imagined myself answering honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm suffocating here. But instead, my fingers typed out the safer reply, soon. Just a little more work to finish. I set the phone face down on the desk, pushing away the wave of guilt that crept up inside me. It wasn't a lie. Not yet. The creak of the classroom door pulled me out of my thoughts. I looked up, startled, and there he was, Daniel. The history teacher. We'd exchanged polite smiles in the hallway before, shared casual jokes at staff meetings. But now, standing in the doorway of my empty classroom, tie loosened, sleeves rolled carelessly up his arms, he looked different. Too different. Still here? His voice was low, calm, almost amused. I nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. Yeah. Couldn't leave things unfinished. Daniel stepped further inside, his footsteps echoing softly against the tile floor. He didn't ask for permission, but the way he moved, confident, unhurried, made it feel like he didn't need to. I hate working late alone, he said simply, settling into the desk across from me. Mind if I join you? My instinct screamed that I should say no. That I should pack my things, go home, crawl into my husband's arms, and forget how heavy the silence felt. But instead, I forced a smile and said, sure. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The quiet seemed louder now, charged with something unspoken. I tried to focus on my papers, but my pen hung useless in my hand. My eyes betrayed me, flicking up to meet his. He caught me once, twice, and each time, his lips curved into a knowing smile. The room felt smaller than it had a moment ago. My chest tight, my pulse quick. And as I sat there, under the soft hum of the fluorescent lights, with his eyes lingering on me far longer than they should have, I realized something had shifted. Something fragile. Something dangerous. And though I didn't want to admit it, part of me wanted to see where it would lead. Daniel leaned back in the chair across from me, his posture casual, but his eyes sharp, watchful. He didn't look like a man here to grade papers or plan lessons. He looked like a man studying me. And no matter how many times I dropped my gaze back to my notebook, I could feel it, the weight of his attention, the pull of it. So, he said finally, his voice cutting through the silence, you always stay this late? Not always, I replied, tapping the tip of my pen against the paper. Just when I fall behind. You? He asked, tilting his head. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. I try to escape as soon as the last bell rings. But tonight, his eyes lingered on me. I guess I had a reason to stay. My stomach tightened. I should have rolled my eyes, laughed it off, brushed it away like any harmless comment between coworkers. Instead, I felt heat rising to my cheeks. Don't say things like that, I muttered, trying for sternness, but my voice came out softer than I intended. Why not? His lips curved into a half-smile, and for a long moment, he didn't look away. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, my heart racing faster than it should. To break the tension, I leaned forward, shuffling the papers in front of me. We should focus. Tomorrow's lessons aren't going to write themselves. Right, he said, though he didn't move his gaze from me. Lesson plans. For a few minutes, the scratch of my pen filled the silence, but every time I looked up, his eyes were waiting. Calm, patient, steady. It made me feel exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the classroom lights above us. Finally, he rose from his chair, walking around to my side of the desk. My breath caught as he leaned against the edge of it, close enough that I could smell the faint mix of coffee and cologne clinging to him. You work too hard, he said, lowering his voice, almost like a secret. You deserve someone to take care of you sometimes. The words hit harder than they should have. My chest tightened, my hand stilled on the page. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed again. My husband's name lit up the screen, flashing innocently against the dark wood of the desk. Daniel glanced at it, then back at me, one eyebrow raised, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. You should answer, he said quietly, though the way his voice dipped made it sound less like advice and more like a challenge. I didn't move. Instead, I flipped the phone over, face down, silencing the vibration. Daniel's smirk deepened. And in that instant, I knew we weren't just talking about work anymore. The silence between us grew heavier after I flipped my phone over. Daniel didn't push, didn't say another word about it, but the way his eyes lingered told me everything he was thinking. And maybe, deep down, everything I was thinking too. I forced myself to keep writing, my pen moving over the page, but the words blurred together. Every nerve in me was tuned to him, how close he was standing, the faint heat of his body just a few inches away, the steady rhythm of his breathing. He leaned down slightly, scanning the papers in front of me. His arm brushed mine as he pointed at a line, and though the contact was barely there, it sent a rush of warmth through me that made my hand falter. You've got a typo here, he murmured, his voice low, close to my ear. I swallowed hard, staring at the smudge of ink instead of at him. Thanks, I managed, though the word came out in a whisper. When I looked up, his face was closer than I expected. His eyes locked on mine, steady, searching. For a heartbeat, the world outside the classroom didn't exist. No lesson plans, no students, no husband waiting at home. Just his gaze, sharp and unrelenting, pulling me in. I broke eye contact, standing quickly, gathering my papers as if I suddenly needed to be anywhere else. But Daniel moved too, stepping slightly to the side, his hand brushing against mine as I reached for a folder. This time it wasn't an accident. His fingers lingered, curling ever so slightly around mine before releasing. My breath caught. My pulse raced in my throat. I'm sorry, he said softly, though his eyes betrayed him. There was no apology in them. There was only intent. I shook my head, trying to find words, but nothing came. My phone buzzed again on the desk behind me, the sound vibrating through the tense air. I didn't even glance at it this time. Instead, I stayed frozen, my hand still tingling where his had touched it, my body betraying me with the truth I didn't dare say out loud. I wanted more. And from the way Daniel's lips curved into that knowing, dangerous smile, he knew it too. I tried to busy myself with the stack of lesson plans, forcing my hand to move across the page, but my thoughts were a mess. Every second stretched out, filled with the memory of his hand brushing mine, with the heat that still lingered on my skin. Daniel didn't go back to his desk. Instead, he dragged a chair closer, the scrape of metal against tile echoing through the empty classroom. He sat right beside me now, his arm brushing against mine as if it were the most natural thing in the world. You really do take this job too seriously, he teased, leaning over to glance at my notes. Anyone else would have left hours ago. I gave a nervous laugh, keeping my eyes on the paper. Somebody has to be responsible. His smile widened. Responsible. Right. He let the word hang in the air, his tone almost mocking, almost daring. I glanced at him, ready to shoot back some sarcastic reply, but the look in his eyes stopped me. It wasn't playful. Not really. It was steady, intense, searching me in a way that made my stomach twist. You know, he continued, lowering his voice, responsibility isn't everything. Sometimes it's about what you want, not what you should do. The words hit harder than they should have. My lips parted, but I had no answer. Because wasn't that exactly the battle I was already fighting? His arm brushed mine again, slower this time, deliberate. He leaned a little closer, so close I could smell the faint trace of his cologne mixed with the sharpness of chalk dust in the air. "See," he whispered. "You're not even arguing." I opened my mouth, searching for some excuse, some witty remark to break the tension, but at that exact moment my phone lit up on the desk again. This time it was a call. My husband's name glowed brightly across the screen, vibrating against the wood. Daniel's eyes flicked down to it, then back up to mine. His lips curved into a smirk. "Answer," he murmured. "Tell him where you are. Tell him who you're with." My pulse pounded in my ears. I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. The phone buzzed once, twice, 3 times before finally going still. I exhaled shakily, realizing I'd been holding my breath the whole time. Daniel leaned back in his chair, but his gaze didn't soften. If anything, it grew heavier, more certain. "You're not going home yet," he said quietly. Not a question. Not even a suggestion. Just a statement. And the terrifying part? He was right. The air between us felt heavier with every passing minute. The classroom, once just a space for chalk and books, now felt like a cage, too small, too silent, too dangerous. My papers lay abandoned on the desk, my red pen forgotten, as if I had already admitted to myself that we weren't here to work anymore. Daniel leaned back slightly, studying me with that calm, steady gaze of his. "You know," he said softly, "I've noticed you for a while now." My chest tightened. "Noticed?" I repeated, pretending not to understand, though my voice trembled with the weight of the word. He smiled faintly. "The way you laugh in meetings. The way you bite your lip when you're thinking. The way you walk into a room and try not to be noticed, but somehow you always are." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "You shouldn't say things like that," I whispered, but the protest sounded weak, almost hollow. "Why?" His voice dipped lower, his eyes fixed on mine. "Because it's wrong? Or because you don't want to admit you like hearing it?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I wanted to deny it, to laugh, to tell him he was imagining things. But the words wouldn't come. My silence was enough. That was when he reached for me. Slowly, deliberately, his hand slid across the desk and rested over mine. His palm was warm, steady, covering me completely. I should have pulled back. Every muscle in me screamed that I should. But I didn't. Instead, I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. My breath came quicker, my body trembling under the simplicity of his touch. "You feel it too," he murmured, as if it was the most undeniable fact in the world. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hand stayed beneath his, and that alone betrayed me. Just then, my phone buzzed again. A message this time. I didn't even need to look, I knew it was him. My husband. "Are you still at school? Do you want me to come pick you up?" The words flashed on the screen like a knife. I slid the phone farther away, face down again, my stomach twisting with guilt. Daniel's thumb brushed slowly across the back of my hand, grounding me, pulling me back into the moment with him. His touch wasn't urgent. It was patient, certain, like he knew exactly how this would end. "Don't answer," he whispered. And I didn't. In that moment, my husband's words blurred into the background, replaced by the heat of Daniel's hand, the steady weight of his gaze, and the terrifying, intoxicating truth. I wanted this. I told myself I could still pull away. That it wasn't too late. His hand was warm over mine, his eyes locked on me like he was reading every thought I didn't dare say, but if I just stood up, if I just walked out of that classroom, I could erase this moment. Pretend it had never happened. But I didn't move. Instead, I sat there frozen, my pulse racing, my breathing shallow, trapped between the guilt gnawing at my chest and the dangerous thrill rushing through my veins. You shouldn't, I started, but my voice cracked. The words had no weight, no conviction. Daniel leaned closer, his thumb brushing lazily across the back of my hand. Then tell me to stop, he whispered. Say the word, and I'll walk out right now. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because the truth was, I didn't want him to. And that terrified me more than anything. I snatched my hand back suddenly, standing up, as if distance could save me. I paced toward the windows, staring out at the empty schoolyard bathed in the dim glow of street lights. The swings moved slightly in the evening breeze, the silence pressing harder with every second. What am I doing? I thought. I'm married. I love my husband. He's waiting for me at home. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again on the desk. Another message. I turned and saw his name glowing softly in the dark room. It's late. Please don't overwork yourself. Drive safe, okay? Red heart. The kindness of it stabbed at me. My throat tightened, tears pricking at my eyes for a moment. This was the man who trusted me, who loved me without question, who believed I was exactly where I said I was. And I was. Physically. But emotionally, I was somewhere else entirely. I wiped quickly at the corner of my eye and turned back. Daniel was still leaning against the desk, watching me with an expression I couldn't decode, patience, hunger, certainty, all tangled together. You look like you're fighting yourself, he said softly. I am, I admitted before I could stop myself. The words spilled out, shaky and raw. I know this is wrong. He stood then, closing the distance slowly, deliberately. Wrong doesn't always mean you don't want it, he murmured, his voice low and steady. Sometimes it just means you're scared of how much you do. I should have shouted at him. I should have run. But when he reached out and brushed a strand of hair back from my face, my body betrayed me again, leaning into the touch, craving it. And in that moment, I realized the lies I had been feeding myself, that I could control this, that it was harmless, that I would stop before it went too far, were already broken. Because deep down, I didn't want to stop. Not anymore. The building had grown eerily quiet. Even the hum of the old radiator seemed distant now, as though the school itself was holding its breath, listening. Outside the windows the sky had slipped fully into darkness, street lamps flickering on one by one, their glow casting faint golden lines across the empty desks. I stood near the chalkboard, arms crossed, trying to put some space between us, trying to convince myself that if I just stayed far enough away, this gnawing heat inside me would fade. But the silence stretched longer, heavier, until I could hear nothing but the wild beat of my own heart. Daniel rose from the edge of the desk, slow, deliberate, his footsteps soft against the tile. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. Every step felt inevitable. You don't have to be afraid, he said, his voice low, smooth, almost dangerous in its certainty. I'm not afraid, I lied, though the tremor in my voice betrayed me. Then look at me. I turned, against every ounce of better judgment, and our eyes locked. The air between us seemed to vibrate, thick and unspoken. He came closer until I could smell him, soap, faint cologne, the hint of coffee lingering on his breath. When his hand lifted, I flinched, but he didn't grab me. He brushed the back of his fingers lightly along my arm, from elbow to wrist, so faint it could almost be dismissed as nothing. Almost. But my skin lit up beneath the touch, every nerve alive, begging for more. Daniel, I whispered, my voice breaking halfway between warning and surrender. He leaned down slightly, his lips near my ear. Say stop, and I will. But you won't. My phone vibrated suddenly on the desk behind us, the sound loud in the heavy quiet. I froze, my pulse jumping. I didn't even need to look. I knew who it was. My husband. For a second, I thought I'd break free, rush to the phone, anchor myself in the safety of the life waiting at home. But Daniel's hand slid lower, his palm now covering mine, grounding me where I stood. He gently turned my hand, threading his fingers through mine. Answer if you want, he whispered, his lips brushing just close enough to make me shiver. Tell him how late you'll be. Tell him why. I couldn't move. The phone buzzed once, twice, before falling silent again, leaving us suspended in a silence that felt even heavier now. I knew I should have pulled away, should have put an end to this before it spiraled. But as Daniel's thumb traced small circles across the back of my hand, all I could think about was how close we were going to get. And in that darkened classroom, with only the glow of the streetlights painting shadows across the floor, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't waiting for this to stop. I was waiting for it to go further. The silence was unbearable now, thick as smoke. My back was pressed lightly against the teacher's desk, my papers forgotten, the red pen rolling silently to the floor. Daniel still held my hand, his thumb moving in slow circles that sent shivers crawling up my arm. I kept telling myself to pull away. Say stop. Push him back. Leave. But the words never left my lips. Instead, I just stood there, staring into his eyes. The fluorescent light above us flickered once, then steadied, casting us both in its pale glow. His gaze was steady, unrelenting, and the heat in it made my chest tighten until I could barely breathe. You don't really want me to stop, he whispered. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, my pulse wild. Daniel, it was meant to be a warning, but it sounded like an invitation. He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to turn away. But I didn't. I couldn't. My body was already leaning into him, betraying the words I never spoke. When his lips touched mine, it was gentle at first, hesitant, testing. My heart stopped, then raced twice as fast, my stomach flipping as if the ground beneath me had vanished. I should have pulled away after that first second. I should have ended it there. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed him back. It deepened almost instantly. His free hand rose to cup my cheek, tilting my face toward him, while mine clutched desperately at the edge of the desk as if it were the only thing keeping me upright. His lips moved against mine with a hunger that had been waiting, building, smoldering for weeks. I melted into it. My hand slipped up to his shoulder, gripping tightly, pulling him closer. The scent of him, soap, cologne, heat, filled my senses until there was no air left, no thought, no reason. Only him. Somewhere in the background, my phone buzzed again on the desk. My husband. I knew it without even looking. The sound sliced through me, guilt crashing in like a tidal wave. But Daniel's mouth pressed harder against mine, his hand sliding to the small of my back, urging me closer, and the guilt blurred into static. I was drowning in the kiss, in the heat of it, in the dangerous thrill that shook every piece of me. When we finally broke apart, gasping for breath, I stared at him, lips swollen, chest heaving. This is wrong, I whispered, though even I didn't believe the words. Daniel leaned his forehead against mine, his breath ragged. Then why does it feel so right? And in that moment, staring into his eyes, I realized the truth I had been trying to bury. I wasn't going to stop this. Not tonight. The taste of his lips still lingered on mine, warm and dangerous, when silence fell again. My chest rose and fell too quickly, my hands trembling as I clung to the edge of the desk for balance. I should have run the second our mouths parted, but instead I stayed frozen there, waiting. Daniel didn't hesitate. His hand, which had rested lightly against the small of my back during the kiss, began to move. Slow at first, deliberate, tracing the curve of my spine through the thin fabric of my blouse. Every nerve in my body responded, arching instinctively toward his touch. Daniel, my voice cracked, half plea, half warning. He leaned closer, his breath hot against my ear. Say no, and I'll stop. But I didn't. I couldn't. His hands grew bolder, sliding around my waist, pulling me closer until my body pressed flush against his. The desk behind me dug into my hips, but I didn't care. I only cared about the heat radiating between us, about the way my pulse raced as if my body had been waiting for this all along. I gripped his shirt, clutching at the fabric like a lifeline. My fingers tangled in it, pulling him even nearer, as though the distance we'd closed still wasn't enough. His lips brushed my jaw, trailing lower, making me gasp softly into the empty room. The classroom was utterly silent except for the sound of our ragged breaths, the soft rustle of fabric, the faint squeak of the chair he knocked aside when he pressed me further back against the desk. It was reckless, insane, anyone could have walked in, any phone call could have shattered it. And then, as if to mock me, my phone lit up again. My husband. The screen glowed bright in the dark room, his name shining like a warning I refused to heed. On my way to bed. Wish you were here. Red heart. Tears stung at my eyes for the briefest moment, guilt slamming into me like a wave. But Daniel's mouth found mine again, harder this time, and the guilt blurred into static. My body betrayed me, melting under him, craving every touch, every kiss. His hand slid down my arm, over my hip, gripping firmly, possessively, and I let out a soft sound I couldn't contain. My legs weakened, and I leaned into him completely, surrendering to the gravity pulling us together. For weeks, we had danced around this moment, pretending it wasn't there. But now there was no pretending. His touch said everything. My silence screamed the truth. And in that dim, empty classroom, I knew there was no going back. The kiss deepened until it was no longer tentative, no longer careful. It was raw, hungry, desperate, the kind of kiss that stripped away every last defense I had left. My hands, once gripping the desk for balance, now tangled in his shirt, pulling him closer, holding him like I had been waiting for this moment all along. Daniel's hands moved with the same urgency. One pressed firmly against my lower back, anchoring me against him, while the other slid upward, fingers brushing along my ribs before resting just beneath the curve of my shoulder. His touch burned through the thin fabric, every pass of his hand unraveling the fragile excuses I'd clung to. My breath hitched as he pressed me tighter against the desk, the edge digging into me, pinning me in place. His mouth moved from my lips to my neck, trailing fire across my skin. I gasped, clutching at him harder, my body betraying the words screaming inside my head, "Stop. Stop before it's too late." But I didn't say them. Instead, I tilted my head back, giving him more, surrendering piece by piece. The sound of his breath against my ear, the heat of his hands, the press of his body against mine, it all drowned out the buzzing guilt that tried to claw its way in. My phone lit up again on the desk, a cold glow in the dim classroom. This time it wasn't a call, just a notification. A picture from my husband. A selfie of him in bed, smiling, captioned, "Waiting for you. Don't stay too late, red heart." The image sliced through me, sharp and cruel in its innocence. My chest ached, my stomach twisted, but Daniel's mouth was on me again, his hands pulling me closer, and my body responded before my mind could catch up. He lifted me slightly onto the desk, my papers scattering to the floor in a messy heap. The sound echoed through the empty room, and I froze for a second, staring at the door as if someone might burst in. But no one did. The school was silent, deserted, and we were completely alone. Daniel leaned in, his lips brushing mine once more, slower this time, deliberate. His hand cupped my face, tilting it toward him. "You can still stop me," he whispered, his voice low, almost pleading. But when his mouth found mine again, I kissed him back harder than before, answering the question without words. And in that moment, with my husband's message still glowing on the desk behind us, I knew the truth. I wasn't going to stop this. Not now. Not tonight. The desk beneath me felt cold and solid, but my body burned as if I'd stepped too close to a fire. Daniel stood between my knees now, his hands gripping my waist, pulling me closer with a certainty that left no space for hesitation. My fingers curled around his shoulders, desperate, clinging, as if holding on would make sense of the chaos unraveling inside me. His lips devoured mine, urgent and hungry, trailing down to my neck, sending shivers down my spine. I gasped, my back arching instinctively, the sound echoing through the empty classroom like a secret I couldn't take back. "Daniel," I whispered, but this time there was no warning in my voice. No protest. Only surrender. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his breath ragged, his eyes burning with something I had only ever imagined in stolen glances. You know what this means, he said softly, his hands tightening at my sides. There's no going back. I should have stopped him. I should have said the word, should have walked out, should have remembered the man waiting for me at home. My husband's picture still glowed faintly on my phone across the desk, his smile frozen in innocence. But all I could see, all I could feel, was Daniel. When his mouth crashed against mine again, deeper, harder, my body gave in completely. My legs wrapped around him without thought, pulling him closer, erasing the space between us. His hands roamed over me, claiming, exploring, making my skin ignite beneath every touch. The classroom was silent but for the frantic rhythm of our breaths, the scrape of the chair knocked aside, the faint rustle of fabric as his fingers gripped tighter, pulled harder, demanded more. And I gave it. Every barrier I had built, every promise I had made, shattered in that moment. I clung to him as if the world outside no longer existed, no students, no husband, no vows, no rules. Only this heat, this hunger, this forbidden surrender. Somewhere in the haze, my phone buzzed again, the vibration a cruel reminder of reality. My husband's name flashed once more, innocent, trusting, loving. But I didn't reach for it. I couldn't. Because right then, in the dim glow of the streetlight filtering through the classroom windows, I crossed the line I swore I never would. And I knew nothing would ever be the same. The drive home felt endless, though I barely remembered the turns of the wheel. My hands clutched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, and still they shook. The night air seeped in through the cracks of the window, cool and sharp, but it couldn't quiet the fire still burning across my skin. The classroom lingered on me. His touch, his breath, the way his voice had sounded when he told me there was no going back. Every detail replayed in my head in dizzying loops, until I almost forgot how to breathe. And then, like a cruel counterweight, my husband's messages echoed in my mind, I miss you. Drive safe. Don't stay too late. By the time I pulled into the driveway, guilt had wrapped around my chest like chains. I sat there in the car for a moment, engine ticking softly, staring at the warm glow of the windows. My home. My sanctuary. The place that was supposed to mean safety and love. And yet, as I sat there, I felt like an intruder. I finally forced myself out, my legs heavy, my steps uneven as I walked up the familiar path. When the door opened, he was there waiting, just like always. There you are, he said softly, relief in his voice as he pulled me into his arms. His warmth was immediate, his embrace strong and familiar. I froze for a second, then let my arms circle him slowly, clumsily, the weight of what I had done pressing me down. You worked so late, he murmured against my hair. I was worried about you. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to sound steady. I lost track of time. It wasn't a lie. But it wasn't the truth. He kissed my forehead, gentle, tender, the kind of kiss that should have filled me with comfort. Instead, it felt like it split me in half. As he led me inside, the smell of home wrapped around me, familiar, warm, everything I had always wanted. He had left a plate for me on the table, dinner waiting, untouched. My chest tightened at the sight of it. We sat together, and he asked me about my day, his voice casual, loving, unsuspecting. I nodded, smiled, answered where I could. Every word I spoke felt heavy, rehearsed, a lie tangled in the truth. He laughed at something I said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand, and the simple, innocent gesture nearly broke me. Because all I could feel was the ghost of Daniel's hand there instead. Later, when we lay in bed, he curled against me, his breathing slow, steady, content. His arm draped over me protectively, his warmth seeping into my skin. I stared into the darkness, my eyes wide open, the ceiling blurring as tears threatened to fall. I wanted to tell him. To confess. To beg for forgiveness I didn't deserve. But the words caught in my throat, swallowed by the crushing weight of what I had done. So I lay there silently, his heartbeat steady against my back, my mind racing with the memory of another man's breath, another man's touch. And as the night stretched on, one truth carved itself deeper into me than all the rest. I had crossed a line that could never be undone. And even lying beside the man I had promised forever to, I had never felt farther away.